Today, we're going to be asking the question, will Social Security run out of money? Hello, and welcome to Money Talks. My name is Ken Wink with Summit Financial Consulting. If you hear the show today and like what you hear, give us a call at 586-226-2100, or you can visit our website, summitfc.net. Be sure to check out the podcast page. You can listen to old shows and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. So, for most Americans, Social Security is the cornerstone or one of the largest parts, anyways, of their retirement income. And especially for those who don't have a ton of money set aside for retirement. But you've probably heard the system's under some pressure. According to the current projections, Social Security retirement benefits, the reserves will run out in about 2033. So it doesn't mean that Social Security is going to completely disappear. As long as there's one person working in the United States, as long as there's somebody working and paying in those payroll taxes, there's still going to be some money coming in, but the cushion's going to be gone. So if nothing changes, the program could be in some trouble. And some projections say that they're going to cut benefits by up to 23%. So that's a really, really big chunk. So during today's show, we're just going to talk about all the challenges that Social Security is facing. But before we jump into that very important topic, let me introduce my co-host, Tony Shore. I have heard through the grapevine that Tony is an avid Labubu collector. And for those of you who don't have kids in this age group that are dealing with Labubus, it's basically a little plush collectible toy that it's like the hottest toy on the market. They're actually putting up little pop-up tents on the corners of major intersections here in Metro Detroit selling counterfeit Labubus. So it's reached a feverish pitch over here, Tony.
No, wrong. You're going to get the buzzer today, buddy. That is not... No, I want our listeners to know that I do not, nor will I probably ever own a Labubu. Not that I don't think it's a cute trend, but I collect record albums, vinyl records.
Nicer.
So that's what I'm into. No Labubus, not even any. My kids are all in their 20s now. They don't have Labubus either, but I do. A couple people I work with do have a Labubu sitting on their desk, and I'm like, "What's that?" I didn't even know what it was, and they were shocked that I didn't know. So that's the first I had even heard of it. But you're right. I'm eager to hear to get into the topic today, Ken, because we hear the sky is falling with Social Security, and I'm hoping you can help set the record straight on what this really means, and that up to 23% it could be reduced, but that's could be. And I have my personal feelings on this. We'll get into it about what might happen, but I'm interested to hear what you say. But you hear things out there, Ken, and I think people are scared because, I mean, listen to this. When you hear it on the TV and the news with such gravitas.
Here's another truth. Social Security is dying.
I mean, just hearing that, I get, ooh, we should all be scared.
Yeah,
but that's not
chill.
But that's not necessarily true. And you're right. A lot of people do rely on Social Security. So for the countless Americans that do rely on Social Security, or even, I don't care how much money or how little money you have, you want Social Security to be there. You've paid in for it. It paid into it. But there are very few things that are more important than the future of Social Security to a lot of folks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe the best place to start is just how did we get into this situation?
Yeah.
So a stat that just absolutely blows me away is that back in 1945, there were 42 workers for every one retiree.
Wow.
And now recently the number is there are only 3 workers for every person receiving Social Security. So it went from 42 to 1 to 3 to 1. So if anybody asks why there's a bit of a strain on the system, that's probably the biggest. But there's a couple other things that are noteworthy, and that's just that people are living longer, right? I mean, when Social Security first started, you couldn't turn it on until age 65. but mortality at that time, so when the average person was passing away, was like 62, 63.
Yeah, for men back then it was 62 or 63. So the majority of people never made it to the age where they could even collect. At
Right.
least men, for sure. That's something. In 1935, they didn't have to pay out too much.
No,
So that makes a big difference too. And you're right, people are living longer. I think the good news is people are living longer. The bad news is people are living longer.
right.
Right? I mean, that's it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, they say that life expectancy overall, including men and women, has increased by 16 years since Social Security started. So
Wow.
yeah, some major advances in medicine and
Sure.
maybe nutrition. I know my great grandpa unfortunately passed away in his 40s, but it was, lard, sausage, eggs for breakfast, everything. He was literally a lumberjack, so he had a lumberjack breakfast every single morning, but
Wow.
unfortunately it caught up with him. So, maybe
Huh.
there's some more knowledge going around about how to eat healthy and exercise and certainly more
There is? I haven't heard it.
statins and drugs.
I haven't heard it for myself. I should probably check that out.
Well, the next sort of grim stat here, I mentioned it earlier, in 2033, payroll taxes. So for everybody working and contributing into the system, it's only going to cover about 77% of the benefits unless Congress acts. I'm not holding my breath for Congress to act and fix this thing. They've been known, we've known about this shortfall for a really long time, and they have not been acting very quickly on it.
Yeah, but they have fixed it in the past. And I mean, we've actually come to this point once before, and that's why they raised the full retirement age from 65 to 67. They've made adjustments along the way in the past, but it's been a long time, and they've known this day would come again, and they haven't done anything. They've kicked the can down the road, but I have to believe they're not going to let that happen. That's my personal belief. I think that and there are many things. I don't know if you're planning on talking about their options, but they have many options that could easily fix it. Raise the full retirement age from 67 to 70. Doing that alone won't completely fix it, but it would help. They can take that. There's a cap, right, on how much of your earnings when in your working years can be taxed that they pull Social Security tax out of, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if they took off that cap, I mean, that would fix it. Because let's say there's a CEO out there who makes $800,000 a year. That's his salary, right? Or her salary. They only have to pay Social Security tax on what's the amount? Is it, I think it's 180,000 or
Yep.
some 175 maybe, right?
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of variation or a lot of calculations that go into it, and
Sure.
standard deductions and stock options versus just regular wages and
Oh, that's true.
comp,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of moving parts there. But you're absolutely right. The bottom line is, if you're making good money, at some point you just don't have to pay taxes for Social Security anymore. And if they removed that and just made everybody pay Social Security on every dollar that they made, that would definitely be a nice shot in the arm for it.
Yeah. And of course, people who make over that amount are saying, hey, no, I don't want that. But somebody's going to have to make some sacrifices somewhere. And maybe we'll all have to sacrifice by they might increase the Social Security tax that's taken out of our paychecks, right? From whatever it is, 12.5%, it might go up to 14 or something total. That's what you pay plus what your employer pays total. But yeah, I think, what is it, 6% or 6.5%?
6.2% is
Oh, yeah,
what
6.2.
individuals pay, and then
Yeah.
6.2% is also what the employer pays. And if you're lucky like me and you're self-employed, you pay both the employer and the employee portion on your own.
So about 12, almost 12.5%
Yep.
of your pay because you're self-employed or you own your own business. Then then it's you are the employer.
I
Lucky you.
Yeah.
You're so lucky, Ken. I mean, I think all the ways that you have it so good over there. Paying all your own health care. You don't have a company to contribute to that. You pay all your own taxes. You don't have a company contributing to your Social Security.
There's that's probably a topic for another day of
Yeah,
benefits of being self-employed, because there are benefits and there are tax write-offs. I guess
of course.
we'll make that next week's show. But
Sure.
on this particular topic, I got the latest and greatest numbers. If they were to raise taxes right now to basically fix it, and this was the only thing they wanted to change, because you already mentioned two really good ways to help improve it, but 3.8% is how much they would have to raise taxes
Oof.
right now to fix it.
Yikes.
So if you split it between the employee and the employer, looking at like 1.9% increase. I remember when that was only 2%, and it
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
It
it's
would have
just
been a
going to
lot.
keep going up because they kick the can down the road. Nobody wants to tackle it. And I always thought one of the lame duck presidents, like Biden or somebody who doesn't have another term to go, could just, once they know they're not going to be
Fix it.
reelected,
Yeah.
just fix it. Fix it. And there's so many things they can do, right?
I'd rather be the president that fixed Social Security rather than the president that destroyed Social Security.
that caused a 23% deduction in benefits. That's a killer. That's a career killer for a politician. So that's why I don't think they'll let that happen. But like you say, they've let it go this far, and it's getting worse.
Well, and you mentioned some fixes that have happened in the past. One of the things that they eliminated in the past was some of the extra options that you could do with a spouse. So you could like file and suspend and start getting your spouse's benefit while your benefit continued to grow. That used to make those Social Security maximization reports pretty exciting to put together. But
Even more valuable, right?
yeah, basically find ways through planning to squeeze even more out of Social Security. But President Obama got rid of most of those to try and sort of put a Band-Aid on Social Security. So
Sure.
that was done, and that has helped. But if the politicians wait until the very last minute, they'll have to raise taxes 4.25%.
Oh,
So, to go from the current levels, I mean, it's almost 20%. It's creeping up on it. So that's
yeah.
a lot to go into Social Security. So I'm hoping that they do some kind of combination of factors there, and maybe
I guarantee they'll raise the full retirement. Well, I can't guarantee it, but my personal opinion is they will raise the full retirement age. They'll do that for sure, I think, because people are living longer. And
yeah, I agree. I mean, with the extended life expectancy, it makes sense that maybe you could work a little bit longer, but
sure.
I guess it depends on your job, right? My dad
really
is
depends.
72. Yeah. My dad's 72 and he's still working here at Summit Financial, almost full time, but he's not a bricklayer. He's not
No.
climbing poles for AT&T or something that can really take its toll on your body. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah. The average reduction, if we're wrong, because I agree with you, I think the government's going to do something. I think it would create a really, really tough financial situation for the United States if Social Security was cut by, 20 some percent. But the average reduction in benefits for a married couple would be $18,000 a year if they were to cut it.
And in retirement, that's real money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to almost anyone.
Yeah.
Wow, that's not good.
No, and then you factor in inflation, right? So inflation has been eating away at everyone's standard of living, and since 2010, Social Security has lost about 20% of its spending power. So it amounts to about $4,000 per year that people have already lost just because of inflation in the past.
Even with the
15 years.
cost of living adjustments each year, it's still lost to inflation because it never keeps up, right? That's the problem.
No, that's the thing. So what we're talking about is the COLA. So that's the cost of living adjustment for Social Security. And here's the dirty little secret, Tony. The government wants this number to be as low as possible.
Of course.
Yeah, because the government is one of the largest employers, right? So when inflation is high, that trickles into those wages. There's military wages that increases 401k contributions, but that also means bigger matches. There's just so many different areas of the economy that the inflation rate trickles into.
So they have their own special government calculation on inflation. Like the year my health insurance went up 20%. I remember that year they said the inflation rate was like 2.9 or 3%.
Yeah,
Or in the twos. And I'm like, that's weird. My groceries went up at least 5, not
right.
2. And so groceries, gas, my healthcare costs all went up exponentially, but their official cost of living adjustment was this is a number of years ago. I looked, and I know because it was the year my healthcare premiums went up 20% one year.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was not happy about it. And I remember then it was around the same time I heard the COLA adjustment, the cost of living adjustment, the CPI went up 2.8 or something. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, I'm like, no, no, that's not right.
There's a website that's out there, and I haven't checked it in years, but it used to be Shadow Stats. I think it was shadowstats.com.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and they would figure out, okay, in the 1980s, how the government calculated inflation, and then in the 1990s, how the government calculated inflation, and in the 2000s, and you go through it. If we had today's numbers and we're using the 1980s formula, regularly inflation, the last time I checked, was 7-8% per year, which seems a lot more like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, their calculation for inflation is crazy. And what they do include in there, they don't include certain things. I don't know that groceries are included or clothing. There's something weird that isn't included, right? Or energy or gas, or I forget. There's certain things that aren't included that everybody has to buy, right? Which is, well, that should be included, right?
Yeah, it's surgical the way that they manipulate and update the calculation. So that's how we can have a number like that where people's spending power has gone down so much despite the COLA. So that's where we're coming from.
I mean, at least, hey, not to look a gift horse in the mouth. COLA, the cost of living adjustment. It's good that they have something, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, when we had such high inflation, the cost of living adjustment was pretty decent, right? That year it was 8% or something.
Yeah, it was a good jump.
Yeah. So that's
well, good. And I think, to your point, I don't really think there's a chance that they're going to let this go without just making some type of adjustment on the fly. I mean, if they keep the benefit the same, that'll probably save the economy, because we know 1 in 3 people are getting Social Security versus workers anyways. And I found a stat, 40 million Americans depend on Social Security for at least half of their income. And for 16 million Americans, it's literally their only source of income. It's the only thing getting deposited in their bank account every month.
So that's a lot of the Americans out there. And that's a lot of money that goes into the economy that wouldn't be there.
Right.
If you cut that by 23%, you could really cripple the economy if you let Social Security go, because it creates a number of other issues for the country too.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're in this situation right now where you're trying to decide, should I turn on Social Security or not? Just remember that timing is really, really important, because if you start to draw on it early, you can draw it as early as age 62, and earlier, actually, if you're permanently disabled. If anyone's dealing with a situation where they might be permanently disabled, be sure to give us a call at 586-226-2100, because we have absolutely wonderful referrals for disability attorneys. I won't name her, but every single case that she's taken, she's won. So she's at 100% success rate. So, if she takes your case, she doesn't want to break her streak. She's probably going to win it.
Yeah.
So we'd be happy to help with that. But
that's good.
If you wait until age 70, that's the longest that you can wait to turn on Social Security. And that's basically a way to effectively maximize it. And you always got to keep in mind, if you are married, that if one of you passes away, the surviving spouse will get the higher of the 2 Social Securities. So we always want to remind people, right while you're married and both alive, you're getting 2 Social Securities, but you got to have a game plan for someday, God forbid, your spouse is going to pass away.
Yeah, and it's typically the wife, the female, that's ends up with the short card, because if you both say, "Oh, I'm going to file as soon as I can, I'll get more checks," but then you pass away, women typically outlive men by at least 6 years is the average, I think. So, and you're going to leave your spouse in a bad situation if you don't have a higher Social Security amount, because they're left with the higher of the two. But if it's greatly reduced. So let's talk about that. That was my big question. A lot of our listeners want to know. So you hear these arguments all the time. You got to file as soon as you can at 62 to get the most checks. You got to wait until you're 70 to get the most. What about filing, and what's the truth there, and what does it mean? When to file is important, right? It's huge.
Yes, yeah, it is absolutely huge. I think that the number one reason people want to file early is just fear. Like they sort of take their spreadsheet or their pad of paper and they just set it aside and just say, I'm scared. So they're scared.
Here's another truth. Social Security is dying.
Why would they be scared?
I have no idea. I mean, we have that soundbite. That's evidence enough. But people get scared. They're scared they're going to outlive their money. They're scared of inflation. They're nervous about the types of headlines. Why people are watching and listening to the shows, because they're just nervous that it's going to run out. But I think it's safe to say, unless I just don't see a scenario where they don't find a way to fix it one way or another. And most likely they'll just punish the younger workers by giving them higher taxes, because that doesn't affect the retirees. And retirees, Tony, they are good at voting. And that's
usually they're the big voting bloc, especially now with all the baby boomers who have retired. There are 11,200 people a day in the United States turning 65 every single day. Wow. 11,200 people in our country a day are turning 65. That's the highest that number has ever been. So that means there are more seniors entering the system, putting strains on Social Security and Medicare, and they are the largest voting bloc at this time, or one of the largest, but they actually vote. They're the largest because of the percentage of seniors who vote versus the percentage of everyone under the age of 65 who doesn't, right? That's what makes that more powerful. So,
I mean, if you're young and you have kids, and especially if your kids are playing sports, there's just not enough time in the day. So it makes sense that the seniors who, just got to work around Jeopardy, they can make it out and vote. And they have
Wheel. I like to watch the Wheel.
I'm
a Wheel watcher.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. Yeah. At one point we were running commercials on both, and it was equal. So there's a divide.
Well, sure. I like both. I'll watch both if I can. Yeah. Unless they're on at the same time. But you're right. Fear and anxiety about Social Security drives people to file, right? But what about that? Early claiming compounds the cuts and the reduction, right?
It does, yeah. So if you file at age 62, you're basically locking in a smaller monthly benefit for yourself for the rest of your life. And when these when the cost of living adjustments come in, your annual raise, those are going to be smaller because you filed earlier as well. And then again, if you're married and if your spouse passes away, now we're locking in a lower benefit for their lifetime too. So even if one of you has some health problems, you gotta approach it as a team and look at what's our life expectancy. Every time we sit down with a family to talk about when they should turn on Social Security, that's the first place we go, Tony, is how does life expectancy look in your family? When did people pass away? Were they heavy smokers or drinkers or on drugs, or, does cancer run in your family? All these sorts of things can help us come up with a game plan. Nobody we joke around with people all the time. If you tell us what day you're going to die, I will tell you exactly when you should turn on Social Security.
Right. And nobody knows the day or time. Nobody knows the day or time. And that's the issue here. You could really do it. Not only Social Security, you could plan out the best retirement income plan in the world if you knew the day and time, right?
Yeah.
So you have to plan. You have to hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? And so claiming at 62 permanently reduces that monthly income. You may get more checks that way. But waiting until 67, your full retirement age, I mean, we're not just talking tens of thousands of dollars. How much more can you possibly get? I mean, what's the statistic there? What are the numbers?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, waiting from age 62 until age 67. If you're one of the luckies, that make it into their late 80s, early 90s, it can add up to $250,000 of extra money from the government by waiting.
$250,000 more by just waiting from 62 to 67. Now that's if your life expectancy is, you have to make it to, there's a sweet spot for everybody. And if you have good family health and you're healthy, you could easily make it to 85. The majority of people do who make it. If you make it to age 65, you have a better chance of making it to 85. I know the stats go up. And so that's real. I mean, you have to consider that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to a break-even analysis, that's what people usually get hung up on. So if you don't turn it on at age 62 and you delay it, in a lot of, depending upon what age and what your earnings were, I would just say the general rule of thumb from what we've seen from running hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of Social Security maximization reports, is that you got to make it into your early 80s, usually age 81 or 82. So if you do delay, and you make it into your 80s, then you can start fist pumping Tony and saying, okay, I beat the government. I got bigger checks now. I missed out on some checks for some years. So you said it perfectly earlier. You might get more checks if you file at age 62, but assuming you live into your 80s, you're going to get less money by doing that.
Because those checks, by filing at 62, that's actually filing early. You can file as early as 62, but it's a greatly reduced benefit. So those checks, if I file at 62 instead of waiting until my full retirement age, how much reduced, or 70, how much reduced are they? It's like, isn't it about 30%? Aren't the stats? It's like 30% less than if you wait until 67, isn't it, or close?
Yeah, so that's correct. And then again, if you're married, you have to take that into consideration too, because some people in a relationship, one spouse makes quite a bit more than the other spouse. And especially if they were a stay-at-home parent, or they or took some time off with the kids for a few years, whatever the case may be. If those earning records, if there's a big discrepancy, a lot of people will think like, oh, well, if I retire and turn on Social Security, I'll have my spouse turn on the Social Security, and they'll get half. That's only if you both wait until full retirement age. So if you retire and then have your spouse turn it on at age 62, again, they're going to have a drastically reduced benefit. So it's so important that people do a Social Security maximization report and see what these numbers are and make an educated
for their personal situation. Everybody's different. I always hear this cooler talk, or it's funny. My wife had went out with a friend of hers, and she's like talking about, I'm going to file when I'm 62. That's the only way. You got to do that. And my wife tried to explain to her, because she knows, because I've talked to her about this, and she knows, no, you should go to a financial advisor and have them run a personal Social Security maximization report. If they're a good fiduciary advisor, they'll run that report at no cost, and you'll be able to see where you're at and what makes most sense for you and your situation. And that's what you need to do. But I know we have listeners, and before they tune out, I want to ask you this. You're not saying, some listeners might say, oh, he's saying don't file at 62. You're not saying don't file at 62.
Absolutely
right?
not.
Because for some people, that makes the most sense, doesn't it? Everybody's going to be different, right?
I have a client that is dealing with cancer right now.
Sure.
Heart goes out to him. And because of the potentially poor health outlook right now, absolutely, we got to turn on Social Security as soon as we can to try to get some money out of it. So it's every situation's different. We have people turn it on at 62, 63, 65. A lot of people will turn it on at 65 because that's a great time to retire if the numbers line up, because that's when you qualify for Medicare. Then you don't have to worry about health insurance costs spiking, because if you retire before the age of 65, most people are on a healthcare.gov plan, unless your COBRA is affordable. A lot of times Cobra is unfortunately very expensive. Cobra is
Yes.
health insurance after you leave your employer that's offered.
Very expensive.
Yeah. Most of the time it's unbearable. So
Yeah.
you go on healthcare.gov. Well, your health insurance premiums are based upon what your income is with healthcare.gov. So the lower we can make your income on paper, the less you have to pay for healthcare, which means if you're drawing on Social Security, that's probably going to increase your income, which will also increase your healthcare costs. So it's just so intertwined, Tony. I don't know how anybody does it without working with a
You should
fiduciary
never do it on
plan.
your own. And I mean, look, my dad's side of the family has a lot of longevity. My grandfather lived to 101.
Wow.
My aunt lived to 103. My uncle on his side lived to 101. And my grandfather lived to 101. I mean, imagine if, for him, he could have easily waited till 70 and made a lot of money off Social Security. I mean, you live until 101 and you waited until 70, he would have made more than he paid in probably. I mean, he did pretty good, right? So, but again, no one knows, right?
The people that created Social Security were just rolling around in their graves hearing he almost drew on it for 40 years.
And he was active through age 100. He was driving at age 100. He was active up until 3 months before he passed too. And they asked him what his secret was. And he said, don't stop. You just got to keep going. If you have a purpose every day, get up every day with a purpose.
Were you skeptical at all? Like, he's driving, but can he drive?
Toward the very end, they finally said no. But yeah, he was surprisingly good.
He was spry.
My dad was worse. I mean, my dad doesn't drive anymore, and he's 81. But Grandpa Bob was good. But anyway, not to get off the topic, we're going long here, but this is an important topic. So will Social Security run completely out of money? I don't think so. I don't think you think that. But could it be decreased significantly? Yes, it could. Right.
There's a chance. And unfortunately, like all the numbers that you and I are discussing, we're still sort of getting the hang of how this is going to work out, because there was some recent legislation that was passed this year. Most people have probably heard of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I think we did 3 shows on it, but
oh, we did. Huh.
The biggest thing with that is that before this bill, 68% of people did not have to pay any taxes on their Social Security. So this is once you're retired, once you're actually receiving the benefits, 68% of people did not have to pay taxes on their Social Security. Now, after the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, they estimate that 88% of people will not have to pay taxes.
Right.
So that's
because of the additional $6,000 tax credit or tax standard deduction. Right. Yeah.
Yep. You got to be over age 65 and make less than 150,000 a year, and you get this extra $6,000 deduction per person. It's not a credit. You're not going to get $6,000 on your tax return just because you turn 65. It's a deduction, so it'll help offset income. Yes. But this type of thing could potentially help reduce the government's lifespan when it comes to Social Security, and just everybody knows about our national debt. It's very, very large, so it just puts a little bit more pressure on the system. We're hopeful that the current administration is right, and that this will help stimulate the economy and we'll grow our way out of it. Time will tell, but it is a potential strain coming up.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, Ken, I'm a little concerned because as of the recording of the show, we're recording this on a Wednesday. You're saying the government that shut down last night, the government that closed last night, had to shut down. We're relying on them to make the right decision to keep this thing moving.
Precisely. We're in good hands, Tony. Nothing to worry about.
Nothing to see here. Move on. Yep. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. But, I don't think people should panic or lose sleep. I think they're going to do something to fix it. And don't just make sure before you file for Social Security, or if you've just recently filed within the last year, go into Summit Financial Consulting and say, hey, run that Social Security maximization report for me. Right. And I mean, here's the deal.
God bless Social Security.
God bless. I mean, right?
That absolutely.
That's the sentiment, because we all rely on it somewhat. So it's the foundation of good, solid retirement income planning, isn't it?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
one last thing I want to mention before we wrap up. If you're in a situation where you're on Social Security or you're thinking about retiring and you're not sure if you can afford to do it, just remember there are some safety levers that you can pull. You can get a part-time job. You could do some gig work. You could do freelancing in your former career, just in a more limited capacity, less time, less pressure. Or you can turn hobbies into income. I have an uncle that loved painting, and now he goes to art shows and sells his paintings, and he does
Wow.
pretty well with that. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to increase your income. And then also there's ways that you can reduce your lifestyle just a little bit. Maybe
Sure.
downsize your home, or eliminate a second vehicle, or eliminate a vacation property, or relocate to a lower area when it comes to either expenses or taxes. So, there's things you can do to not necessarily eliminate your quality of life, but you can maybe cut expenses a little bit or increase income, and make things a little bit more comfy for you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and I think the bottom line is give Ken and the team there a call at Summit Financial Consulting. So before we go, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you.
Yes. So we would love to put a retirement income plan together for you. Not only will we look at Social Security, we'll also look at what your expenses are, what your income is, how much you want to spend on vacations each year once you're retired, how much you want to gift to family, whether it's Christmas, birthdays, helping the grandkids out with college. That's getting tremendously expensive. We can help you plan for your own kids' college expenses, how much you need to set aside and how much you can cover. You name it, IRA to Roth IRA conversions. We know that our national government has way too much debt, and it may be beneficial to pay some of the taxes now when tax brackets are low versus in the future when they might have to raise because of that national debt. So we can mathematically figure out to the dollar how much you should convert from IRA to Roth IRAs to help potentially sustain your retirement, and actually do multi-generational tax planning to help not only you, but the next generation. So we would love to do that for you for no cost. Give us a call at 586-226-2100 or visit our website, summitfc.net.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Money Talks with Summit Financial Consulting and our host, Ken Wink.